In part 1, chapter 15 of Don Quixote, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza take a break from their search for Marcella. Rocinante spies some female ponies and decides to have a little fun, but he's beaten by their angry owners. Don Quixote and Sancho Panza spring to his defense, but they suffer a brutal defeat. Sancho Panza wants to go home, but Don Quixote just wants to find a place to sleep for the night. They find an inn down the road. The Don thinks it's a castle. In part 1, chapter 16, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza are patched up by the innkeeper's wife, her daughter, and their maid, who reappears in the middle of the night to visit the mule driver with whom Don Quixote and Sancho Panza share a room. In the dark, Don Quixote mistakenly thinks she is the innkeeper's daughter, a princess coming to visit him. He embraces her, telling her they cannot be together because he loves Dulcinea del Toboso. The maid struggles to get away from him. The jilted mule driver punches and tramples Don Quixote. The maid hides in Sancho Panza's bed, which collapses, and everyone ends up punching one another, including the innkeeper. The local police captain finds an unconscious Don Quixote and declares that someone has died. In part 1, chapter 17, upon regaining consciousness, Don Quixote tells Sancho that the invisible blows came from a Moorish enchanter protecting the princess. In great pain, Don Quixote makes a potion that will allegedly cure any ailment, including being cut in half. The innkeeper gives him oil, wine, salt, and rosemary. The Don drinks the mixture, becomes violently ill, then sleeps for 3 hours and wakes feeling restored. When Sancho Panza drinks some of the balm, he just feels like he's going to die. This, says Don Quixote, is because Sancho Panza isn't a knight. Don Quixote insults the innkeeper and rides away without paying, leaving Sancho Panza behind. The innkeeper and the other guests extract payment from Sancho Panza by placing him on a blanket and tossing him into the air over and over again, taking the saddlebags from his donkey as he flies through the air. Don Quixote always comes out unscathed, partly because he's constantly changing the rules of knighthood to suit the situation at hand. He adheres to the parts of knight-errantry that seem noble and heroic, but he always manages to sidestep the more unpleasant aspects of his new profession.